15% of sales, 15% of the revenues that they make from those sales into the China market of the H20 when it comes to Nvidia or AMD's equivalent. Once they start shipping those, they will get the export license, according to this reporting, if they pay that 15% into the US Treasury. That apparently is how it's going to work. There are legal questions around this. If this is categorized as an export tax, potentially there are legal challenges to this. But according to our reporting, this is what Nvidia and AMD have signed up for. And again, quoting some of the analysts in our own reporting, pretty unprecedented. Hard to think of another example of a US corporate signing up to this kind of export demand from the US government. China, meanwhile, yet to officially comment, John, on this development, but they have in recent days pointed out through state media and through blogs affiliated with state media concerns about what they describe as national security risks associated with Nvidia's H20 at a time, of course, when China is now showing no signs at all of walking back from its doubling down on building out its own chip sector and ensuring that it has less dependency on those US AI accelerators. We're getting red headlines crossing right now across the Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg scoop that at the same time, or at least shortly after what we heard from President Trump, China has in fact been urging its own companies not to use Nvidia's H20 chips in new guidance. This, again, is according to Bloomberg reporting. I've got more details on this. So, China has put out notices to a number of state-owned and private companies urging them to avoid using these H20 processors. These were the ones, of course, initially banned by the President Trump and his administration before, again, we got the news yesterday that Nvidia could start selling them into the Chinese market if they give 15% of those revenues to the US Treasury. Over the past few weeks, according to Bloomberg reporting, Chinese authorities have sent notices to a range of firms discouraging the use of less advanced semiconductors. This, again, according to people familiar with the matter. Min, this is a response from China. It firms up what we expected, what had been signalled from state media and state media affiliated blogs yesterday, suggesting that China has concerns about national security risks that they claim are associated with some of these chips. They have suggested there are backdoors, for example, in some of these Nvidia chips. Certainly that has been a concern that's been flagged. And now we have confirmation that China has been sending out official notices. How significant is this?
Yeah, definitely very significant. The timing as well, very significant, coming on the day when President Trump had announced the extension of the trade truce. And we know China had been pushing so hard for the rolling back of these tech curbs. And clearly, China doesn't see the reversal of the decision to sell H20 chips to China as a win or a concession at all. And this comes as US officials have been publicly calling for the installation of these location tracking capabilities in the chips that are being sold to China. You add to that, H20 isn't even the most advanced chips that the US has. And so China had repeatedly, through its state media, signaled that it's opposed to these sort of backdoor to the US government, and also saying that the H20 chips are not the most efficient chips out there. It remains to be seen whether or not the sale of the Blackwell line of products, because it's more advanced, whether that is enough to appease Beijing to put aside some of these security concerns. Because, of course, on the US side, President Trump has shown a willingness to put aside national security concerns for a price if Nvidia pays them, 15% of the China sales revenue. They had been open to sell those, to issue those export licenses for the H20 chips. Now, of course, the big question is chips still at the center of this trade tussle between the two sides? Will China still want any of the chips that US can offer if the security concerns are not addressed? That's a big question. And of course, China will likely continue to pour in more resources to double down on its self-reliance and self-sufficiency push.